Dear students, I welcome you to the UGC EPG Pathashala on Human Rights and Duties. My name is Professor YSR Murthy. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Human Rights Studies, OP Jindal Global University. In the unit relating to national mechanisms for enforcement and promotion of human rights, today we take up the module on public interest litigation and gender justice. Earlier on, you have been introduced to the concept of public interest litigation and how it has changed the lives of detainees as well as the secured a right to clean environment, and how people who are not able to afford a judicial remedy on account of their poverty or on account of other factors were helped through these class action suits by public spirited individuals. Today, we are going to look at how Supreme Court has furthered gender justice through a variety of cases. In this module, we are going to understand and appreciate the range of interventions made by the higher judiciary to further gender justice. At the end of this module, you will also learn the significance of important principles laid down by the higher judiciary. Public interest litigation caters to those persons, as I said earlier, people who are unable to seek judicial redress for human rights violations, and these petitions are filed by non-governmental organizations or other public sector individuals on behalf of these poor litigants to secure social justice. It is proposed to examine the jurisprudence evolved by Supreme Court of India in a range of cases. Professor Upendra Bagchi, who was a professor at the Delhi University, was deeply moved by the appalling conditions in the Agra Protective Home, where some mentally challenged individuals were receiving care and treatment in conditions which can be described as inhumane, and some of them were tied to their beds with the chains, and they were the sanitary conditions were awful, and the apex court moved by these conditions and by the petition ordered that National Human Rights Commission should be involved in monitoring the conditions of Agra Protective Home and also Agra Mental Hospital, Ranchi and Gwalior. Following the judgment of the Supreme Court, the National Human Rights Commission took it up in a big way and monitored the conditions in these homes and mental hospitals in over several years, and as a result, today you find that people who are held in mental hospitals and these protective homes and their full human rights are protected. There has been a significant improvement in the conditions of these homes following the apex court's order and the intervention of the National Human Rights Commission. Next, we come to another landmark case involving sexual harassment of women at workplace. The Supreme Court redressed a number of violations faced by women. These include the range of civil political rights as well as economic, social, cultural rights. For instance, it redressed cases of rape or sexual assault. It also redressed gender equality at the workplace and also right to food, women forced into prostitution, and the female feticide and infanticide, and also cases relating to discrimination on account of gender status. The interventions made by the Supreme Court also covered women prisoners. In response to a case filed by Delhi Domestic Working Women's Forum, in other words called the Muster case, it was about a group of women who were assaulted sexually by some army personnel when they were traveling on a train, and these organization moved the Supreme Court, and in response to that petition, the Supreme Court laid down a number of guidelines regarding legal assistance, anonymity, compensation, and rehabilitation of rape victims. And it was indeed a landmark case, and in the Supreme Court laid down a very important principle of compensation even without conviction of an offender. In other words, it is like an interim relief to a victim midway through the trial. And so the Apex Court also laid down several broad parameters for the trial of rape victims, and which have been followed ever since. These include, among other things, proper legal representation and also legal assistance at the police station when the victim or the survivor presents herself, and also right to a counsel before being interrogated, and the maintenance of the anonymity of the victim. For instance, media is not supposed to reveal the name of the victim. The government was also directed to set up a criminal injuries compensation board to enable payment of immediate interim relief to the victims. Though there is no right to compensation mentioned in the Constitution of India, the Supreme Court laid down that it is indeed an integral part of Article 21. The National Commission was directed to evolve a scheme of providing adequate safeguard to these victims. Now we turn our attention to yet another important landmark order relating to sexual harassment of women at the workplace. In this case, here is a woman who is a social worker working in Rajasthan, and she was raped, and the Supreme Court held that it is a violation of the gender equality and right to dignity. And in this case, the Supreme Court defined what constitutes sexual harassment at workplace, and it also laid down guidelines to be followed by every employer to ensure prevention of sexual harassment. Please note that there is no law at that point of time regarding sexual harassment, but in the absence of law, the Supreme Court held that international conventions like CEDAW, that is Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, can be relied upon as long as they are not inconsistent with the fundamental rights. And based on that, the Supreme Court asked all the employers to take steps to prevent and address sexual harassment. In fact, the court defined sexual harassment as unwelcome sexually determined behavior, physical contact and advances, a demand or request for sexual favors, sexually colored remarks, showing pornography or other pictures, and any other unwelcome physical, verbal or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature. The court said all of these fall under the sexual harassment definition. Now, let us take up important rights such as economic, social, cultural rights, right to food. In response to a number of starvation deaths in Rajasthan, People's Union for Civil Liberty moved a public interest litigation before the Supreme Court of India. In that context, Supreme Court not only expanded the ambit of that petition and issued notices to all the states, but also passed a series of interim orders. The apex court said, while looking at various social welfare schemes, the court commented on the implementation of the integrated child development scheme, midday meal scheme, and other anti-poverty programs. In particular, the court ordered that food must be made available to old persons, disabled persons, destitute women and men, pregnant and lactating mothers, and this should be made available, and it is the state's responsibility to ensure that these most vulnerable sections are not discriminated in their access to food. In a series of cases, the Supreme Court also gave detailed directions on right to non-discrimination. These include McKinnon, McKenzie and Co. versus Audrey DeCosta, MCD versus female workers. Let's take up women forced into prostitution. A number of petitions reached Supreme Court, in particular dealing with trafficking and the human rights violations faced by women in prostitution. In Gaurav Jain's case, the Supreme Court reiterated the principles of CEDAW, and the Supreme Court also acknowledged that human rights for women, including girl child, are inalienable. They cannot be taken away. They are integral and indivisible. The Supreme Court has also given certain directions to the government with regard to the children of women prostitutes, especially with regard to their right to education in Vishaljit versus Union of India. In this case, the Supreme Court observed that eradication measures should be taken, particularly they should be preventive rather than punitive. Prostitution is not only a social but also a socio-economic problem. It issued directions for setting up of an advisory board and committees to evolve measures for care and protection and rehabilitation of victims of women forced into prostitution. In this case, it directed the law enforcement authority to take appropriate and speedy action under existing law for eradicating this serious social malady. It also recommended setting up of a zonal rehabilitation homes for Devadasis, Jogins. You all know about the practice of sex selection. In other words, a female fetus is selectively aborted in response to a public spirited petition moved by non-governmental organizations. The court gave a series of directions for strengthening the Prenatal Diagnostics Act, and in this case the court was deeply concerned that sex-based selective abortion through the advanced medical technologies represents a serious human rights violation, and it was concerned that the act was not properly being implemented. Subsequent to the court's directions, the act was amended and to cover Preconception Prenatal Diagnostics Act, and the court also gave measures for spreading awareness on sex selection, and it asked the government to review and monitor the implementation of this act. As a result of this direction, today there is an enhanced awareness about the need to prevent female feticide and infanticide, and if you see over the decades, the sex ratio has been going down. The sex ratio is the number of females per or number of males per every 1,000 females, and today, as a result of vigilant law enforcement. It is being checked, and to a certain extent, though a lot more needs to be done with regard to female infanticide and feticide. In particular, the court ordered that the medical officers and the clinics which are violating the provisions of Preconception Prenatal Diagnostics Act should be prosecuted. It also called for setting up a National Inspection and Monitoring Committee for the implementation of this act. Now let us turn our attention to women prisoners. Sheila Barse, who was a journalist working in Maharashtra, was deeply moved by the custodial violence faced by women prisoners, and in response to a PIL filed by Sheila Barse, the court appointed Ms. Armaiti Desai from Nirmala Niketan College of Social Work to investigate the matter and submit a report to the court. After considering the report of Ms. Armaiti Desai, the court gave a series of directions to the concerned state government to protect the women prisoners from the evil of custodial violence. And in other words, they shouldn't be tortured or treated against or in violation of their inherent human dignity. Now let's come to the summary of this module. Through PIL, the Supreme Court tried to remedy conditions in women remand homes, sexual assault, sexual harassment of women at workplace, rape, right to food, and it has laid down broad parameters for dealing with rape cases, and significant orders have been passed in matters like right to food, non-discrimination, female feticide, and infanticide. These path-breaking judgments have led to improvement in advancing the social justice. They have advanced the cause of gender justice in a significant manner. Thank you, students.